So, is that Petrucci's hardest solo? Probably not. Top 5? Top 10? Here it is slow, so you can really see what's going on before we really get into it. So needless to say, this is pretty tricky. So here are my 5 quick tips on how to learn it properly. Tip number 1. The first 4 bars are comprised entirely of the same 6-note lick that just shifts around and changes position, and Petrucci uses this in a lot of his solos. So it's just 6 notes grouped as sextuplets or triplets, and he's picking the first 4 notes, and then the last 2 are pull-offs. So... But there's also some string skipping ones in there as well, so be sure to practice those so you can get used to the different distance between the strings with your picking hand. So... And everything you're playing up until you reach this point is just that 6-note lick, just moving position and moving up the fretboard. Tip number 2, there's a part in the middle with some strangely timed notes in it, here. You'll see online people writing this in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways, whether it's quintuplets with sextuplets or dotted 64th notes or whatever weird and wonderful thing, but they're all wrong and those are all just approximations really. There aren't a great many ways of writing this sensibly, but if we think about where the strong notes in the lick are, they're every 3 16th notes, so in gaps of dotted quavers in other words, which sounds like this. But instead of playing 3 16th notes or 3 semiquavers, we're trying to fit 4 notes into that same amount of time. So 4 notes within the space of a dotted quaver. So if I record a guide guitar just playing the accented 16th notes in Petrucci's lick, it will sound like this. And now if I play the actual part over the reference guitar, trying to match where those accents are, but playing 4 notes for every 3 16th notes, the timing becomes a bit clearer and it sounds like this. Tip number 3, there's one sweep in here which is a bit of a pain, but it's just 2 F-sharp major arpeggios, 1 ascending, 1 descending. The key here, and with any sweeping, is to make sure that none of the fingers in the left hand are actively fretting simultaneously as you move through each string and through the arpeggio, because if you do that, it's going to cause notes to ring into each other, which creates more of a strummed sound, not a sweep sound. And we achieve that by subtly but rapidly lifting each finger off the notes of the arpeggio as we ascend or descend it in a staggered fashion. This is easier when there's no barring involved in the arpeggio, because of course when you're barring, you're playing two notes that are a string apart on the same fret with the same finger. So in order to prevent them ringing into each other, you have to roll that finger, which simulates the sound it would have if you were playing it with separate fingers. The second arpeggio I at least find slightly easier because each note is played by a different finger. So as you descend, you can subtly but quickly unfret each finger in a staggered fashion in order to create that separation. The very last lick, not including the keyboard part I added at the end, I see played in a number of different ways in terms of the position it can be played in, but generally I like to try and keep things in the same or similar position wherever possible without leaping up and down the fretboard unless I have a very good reason to. So here we have the exact same line played first in one octave and then played an octave lower. So this requires some slightly odd fingering doing it here, but I find it better than jumping around. You have to bring in the first finger here, so there, then do a shift with it to set up the next part. Then we start the next octave, the lower octave, with the first finger, so we have to do a shift here. Then we have to bring in the middle finger there. So, first finger shift, first finger shift, middle finger. Tip 5 is less about what's going on in terms of the playing, but more about having an awareness of what's happening harmonically, rather than just parroting Petrucci without knowing what's going on. He's sticking to a system of using two scales, one for the rhythm on F sharp, and one for the riff on E. Every time we get the riff on E, he's playing the E natural minor scale, or Aeolian. Then every time we get the rhythm on F sharp, he's playing the F sharp Phrygian dominant scale with the occasional chromatic alteration. The only difference is at the very end of the solo where we get a big B5 or B power chord, over which Petrucci plays in B Phrygian dominant. And just as a tip 5B in terms of when we're changing between F sharp and E, it follows a very simple sequence whereby we get 4 bars of the riff in E minor and then 4 bars of the F sharp rhythm. Then we get 3 bars of the riff in E minor, 3 of the F sharp rhythm, then 2 E minor, 2 F sharp, 1, 1, and then we get the B5. So it might sound confusing where we're changing between each scale, but actually it follows a very simple sequence. And just as an interesting side note, the keyboard solo does that bit in reverse. So it starts with 1 bar of the E minor riff, 1 of the F sharp, 2 E minor, 2 F sharp, 3 E minor, 3, 4, 4, and then the B5 at the end again. So the guitar solo and the keyboard solo essentially mirror each other. So the guitar solo starts with 4 bars, the keyboard solo ends with 4 bars. 3, 2, 1, like that. And this is just an extra little tip at the end for anyone who's interested. So tip 5C, are we on now? I added the keyboard part, which dovetails into the guitar solo and then takes over at the end. I've added that just because it's fun to play. And it's basically just running up a 6-note scale, which is the B Phrygian dominant scale, but missing the 6th. So this. And Jordan runs up like this. So it's really just the same pattern, but just going up by an octave and then another octave, but sometimes lingering on the same 3 notes before moving up. So then we've got to go from here to do this nice little chromatic rundown he does, which I play here. So, and then it goes onto the open B string, pulling off with a tap on the top B there on the 24th fret. So And then I kind of just run my hand down. Could go something like that, because he kind of does a descending pitch bend thing. So there we have it. Needless to say, this is a tough one, but remember, just slow it right down, isolate any sections that you're struggling with, repeat those, gradually incorporate more and more of it until you get bigger chunks of the solo, and then finally you'll have the whole thing. Good luck. You'll need it with this one.